Hey, everybody. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with CJ. It's your girl, Christian Jackson, the daddy issues expert. I'm excited to have you guys here at this new time because it gives me a chance to get home from taking the kids to school and going to Taekwondo and then getting showers and dinner and all the things together so that I can spend some time with y'all and not have to rush and miss time with my babies because now we are back in the full swing of things with school. And I hope you guys have adjusted well if you guys are raising kids in school to this new normal we have. So here we are. I'm just talking y'all like y'all know me. I don't want to assume. My name is Christian Jackson, and I'm a licensed therapist here in South Carolina. And Wellness Wednesdays, this is where you need to be every Wednesday night. Now with this new time that I'm piloting at 8 p.m., unless I'm on vacation or just need a self-care day or just I'm not up to it because I'm not going to transfer low vibrations to you. But for the most part, I'm here every Wednesday. And so this is where you can come and get the content you need to ensure that you are getting the mental health and wellness tips that you may not have access to. You may not quite be ready for therapy and paying a therapist and billing the insurance and all the things. You may have questions that you can kind of come and engage with me live here now that you know what time to be here, or you watch the replay, whatever it may be. I am here for you on Instagram. Hey, Couch Crew there. And the Couch Crew, my supporters. I'm trying to let that roll off the tongue. That's the new name I have for you guys. You guys here on Facebook and on YouTube, thank you guys so much for supporting and liking and sending me all the love and sharing and all the things. This is where you come because my goal, of course, is to make sure that I increase access to information about mental health care. So literally, I'll talk about anything. But what is this daddy issues expert situation? Why do I call myself that? I wrote the books on it, y'all. So here she is and her sister. So daddy issues is the manual, okay, that you can buy to address your abandonment issues, the rejection, the relationship issues, you're having trouble kind of connecting to yourself, which is really the main crux of the entire daddy issues movement, right? Connecting to other people, you're triggered when you're with your kids or with the kids you're raising or from your employee or your employer. What is it that has you kind of kicking up a bunch of uncomfortable feelings? Why is it that you're attaching to people in a certain way or not? Are you detaching? What does that look like? I have it all here because you get to explore through the lens of daddy issues, right? How you shape your values is important. Your village and how you were raised really informs the way that you respond to other people. And I just happen to be taking the daddy issues route. The daddy issues movement is one that is really important to me because I'm sharing my story in the book, right? You get to know who I am through reading this information and seeing how I transcended daddy issue symptoms such as lack of trust in myself, the self-doubt piece, like I said earlier, the abandonment and rejection, and really how all this stuff really interferes with you being able to engage in a healthy way with yourself and with other people. And so I call it a manual because in between each chapter, you get a chance to ask yourself interactive self-reflection questions along with some practical steps. I'm always here for all the tools, right? So I like to give you guys information as to how do I overcome abandonment issues? Why, if I'm an anxiously attached person, do I respond to people this way and how do I address it? It's all in here. Now, the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, I would give you more information later on the show, but I do want to just kind of put it up here on the screen. It is based on the workbook. The workbook gives you even more things that you can actually go over in the book. I see you popping in here on Facebook and or YouTube, so if you're here, shout me out. Put something in the comments because I can't see who you are. And also I see you guys here on Instagram as well. But I was just saying the Daddy Issues Healing Circle is my live group that I lead. It's starting in a couple weeks, September 13th. And I will let you know more information at the end of the show as to how to apply. But get to know me. Go back and look at my content. Figure out who I am. I have Wellness Wednesdays dating all the way back to the spring, by the way back in March, okay? So you can get to know what I talk about, why I talk about it, what the movement is about, and that is essentially to address this stigma that is attached to daddy issues, right? Women with daddy issues get a bad rap. You can put in the comments, what do you hear when you hear that phrase? How do they describe women with daddy issues? What does that look like? What I really want people to see is that these are people who are dealing with emotional trauma. That is how I treat people in individual therapy. That is the lens that I actually, that it, informs the work that I do with people who come on my couch. And so, yes, that is just a little bit about me. Now, like I said, every Wednesday you come here, you get information about mental health and wellness tips. And so one of my jams is doing things like this, engaging with you all. So feel free to like engage and ask questions and comment and things throughout the show. Let's get into it. One of the major things that comes with daddy issues, and really many mental health symptoms, is that of shame. I told y'all earlier, I was teasing it. It's in the caption if you read them, that we're talking about shame tonight. And I talk about that in my books. Shame is such a huge piece of what daddy issues is. I don't know, the symptoms are, because a lot of us are embarrassed about the way that we act and act out as a result of a negative relationship with our father. If you read the books and you decide to purchase them, you can find them at my website. The link's in my bio on Instagram. What you will see me talk about a lot of is the fact that daddy issues is on a spectrum. Whether you're the daddy's girl who had a good supportive father, all the way to the non-present, I don't even know who my father is relationship. So shame is always a part of daddy issues. When I'm treating women who have these different relationship problems, again, with self and other people, shame comes up. So of course, y'all know how I like to roll. Let's talk about what shame is. We got to have a working definition of what shame is. And hey, Miss Ford, I see you here, Lori. So I want to talk about shame tonight. It's a huge piece of what my fellow therapists who just popped in the chat here on Instagram know, that shame is a part of, unfortunately, our life experience. And so I like to have a working definition anytime that I am here live or talking about something. And let's get into it. In my books, I talk about what shame is according to the definition that I learned from the Brene Brown. If you do not know who Brene Brown is, listen, get into it. I'm going to be talking about this all night, because everything that I'm basing my talk on tonight is based on what Brene Brown says about shame. She's a shame researcher. She has this like viral TED Talk on YouTube. You can go back and look at it. And I share it with my clients a lot because she does a lot of work and talks about vulnerability and how it's a strength. And if you think that you don't understand how that even makes sense and how vulnerability and strength even go together, look it up. Brene Brown, Brene Brown. Dr. Brene Brown is her name. And this is what I'm basing my talk off of. So in my books, I tell you what her definition is of shame. Very simply put, she says that shame is, it means I am bad, right? So I'm going to talk about trauma tonight because that is my jam. It's my specialty. Like I said, the angle that I treat people from, treat meaning address mental health symptoms. Shame is I am bad, very simply put. When we are triggered by something and some of our things are kind of called up, then what happens is our bodies, which keep the information stored about how we felt when we were first experiencing that traumatic event on whatever degree or to whatever spectrum, our bodies respond and our minds tell us things, right? We have a whole shame spiral, is what Brene Brown says. We have this whole negative talk situation going on that tells us that we are bad. We internalize a lot of things. So if I'm going to think about how Dr. Brene Brown says, shame essentially meaning I am bad, if we're going to put that into perspective of daddy issues, then the shame comes from me feeling like if I'm a kid, right? And we know that developmentally, we're not even really able to kind of conceptualize a lot of things. If I'm a little girl and I'm waiting for daddy to come pick me up on the weekend that he's supposed to come pick me up, then, and he doesn't, then if he doesn't come, I must feel like it's my fault. I'm starting at that very early age to start to internalize shame, right? I'm starting to internalize shame. Shame meaning I am bad. I must be a bad kid if my daddy did not come to see me. So that's what I hear a lot of, right? You can fill in the blank wherever you need to, put it in the chat, but how do you experience and define shame? That is just something that I'm thinking about in relation to daddy issues. It has us triggered for the feelings of low self-worth. I am not worth the love that all these people are talking about. So there must be something about me that says I don't deserve love. I don't deserve support. What does that even look like? What does it mean? So it has us questioning our worth. So just put that together. I don't want you to think of shame, the definition of shame of meaning like I am bad, I am worthy, I'm unworthy of love, has us questioning who we are and our self-worth. That's not the only thing. Keep in mind how your body responds, right? We internalize a lot of those things. Our bodies keep the score. That is a book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a great book explaining the ins and outs of trauma. It's how I really kind of conceptualize a lot of things myself. But again, if you're just popping in and I see you guys coming in here live here tonight, shame. That's what we're talking about tonight. We got to have a working definition. Just think, very simply put, shame is I am bad. So what Brene Brown has done is this really great work. One of her books is called Born to Lead. Go read it if you haven't seen it. She presents to us what she calls shame shields. Okay, so that is the vocabulary word for tonight, shame shields. And if you're watching here on Facebook and YouTube, you see the nice little graphics I put up here and the words. If you're watching on Instagram, I'm trying to give you that same energy. We're talking about shame, and according to Dr. Brene Brown and what she tells us about shame shields. Now, if you're looking on Facebook and YouTube, you see that according to Dr. Brene Brown, shame shields are simply put are strategies for disconnection. So let's back up and talk about, from a trauma perspective, what that even means. Fight or flight. Put a 1 in the chat. Let me know if you're watching live, if you know what fight or flight is. Fight or flight is our brain's primitive tendency to protect ourselves, right? So if I am approached by someone who makes me feel unsafe, if I'm physically in a setting that makes me feel unsafe, my brain is going to tell me, listen, I can stay here and I can fight. I can square up, or I'm going to run. That's the flight. There is a third response, and that is freeze. Your brain's primitive response is to protect you. That's what's going to happen. So if we're in a space where we feel threatened emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all those things, then our brain's like, yo, sis, we don't want to feel that pain and rejection we felt when daddy didn't come to the door last time, right? If we're thinking about daddy issues perspectives. I don't want to feel that pain I felt last time I was in the car and I got to have to stay in the hospital for a week, right? And that was really hurtful. So we're not getting in that car, right? So we got to think about our brain. Its role is just to keep us alive. It learns, obviously, different things and evolves as we continue to reinforce, meaning we learn and get smarter. I'm not going to put my hand on the stove because that doesn't make any sense. It's hot, right? So again, we have to think about this from a trauma perspective, at least for me. We're talking about shame shields tonight. According to Dr. Brene Brown, this is what she's saying is a strategy for disconnection. I bring up fight or flight because the strategy for disconnection is a trauma response. Okay, so what she's saying is we respond to shame in 3 different ways, and these are the shame shields. Keep the word shields in mind because the shield, what does it do for us, folks? It protects us. Our trauma response, healthy, unhealthy, everything in between, whatever that thing may be, and it looks like a lot of different things. Regardless, again, our primitive tendency is our brain is trying to keep us alive and safe. And so whatever that disconnection is that we actually lean towards, our shame shield, I want you to get into it and kind of keep these definitions in mind, because I imagine that at some point in our lives, depending on whoever we are and whomever we interact with in various settings, we put up the shield to protect ourselves. So understand this. Our trauma responses, again, based on our primal body's tendency, is to keep us safe, okay? So even though it's twisted, and that's what trauma does, it teaches you, do not connect with these people because you're going to get hurt. Even though we are literally wired for connection, oxytocin, the whole thing. I'll get into it later. But here, the first shame shield, she says, is moving away. We're talking about shame tonight. I see y'all popping in here on Instagram and on Facebook and YouTube. We're talking about shame tonight. Moving away is the first shame shield. According to Dr. Brene Brown, what she says is that we push people away. That is what our trauma response is. And we are triggered for that shameful feeling, meaning that feeling that has us feeling worthless, questioning who we are. We are internalizing that we are innately bad people. We move away. That is one response, right? That's the first shame shield. We are protecting ourselves from feeling that way again. And maybe my daddy told me that he loved me, but then his actions didn't add up. I have a skewed kind of definition of what love is. So now my relationships aren't really working out. That's in my books as well. I'm talking about attachment issues. Where do we learn that from? I happen to be coming from, of course, daddy issues perspective, but maybe you have mommy issues. Maybe you had no parents and you had to figure it out on your own, and you're 35 and you know that this isolating feeling, this moving away shame shield, that only goes so far. And what has that actually done for you? And this is not me shaming you. One of the things that I talk about in my therapy is that we have to call things out and name them, because if we don't, then we're in a tougher spot because we don't know what we need to do to address it, right? So if you diagnose yourself with a cold, then you know, I need to take tussin, I'm gonna be all right. But if it's COVID, you're obviously gonna need more treatment. That's why we gotta know exactly what's going on and call it what it is. So if you're in a situation where you were triggered for your shameful feelings, is your shame shield, your tendency to protect yourself from this feeling of abandonment and rejection and feeling worthless, is that moving away? That is the first shame shield. The second one is moving toward. So that is the opposite end of the spectrum, where in my books, I write about attachment styles, the whole chapter on it, kind of briefly giving you an overview of what that means. So for me, I share my story. Again, it's a very personal work. My tendency was to lean towards being an anxiously attached person, which meant that I sacrificed my needs in order to be the best friend that I could be, the employee I could be the best mom I can be, the best partner, my husband. Like, I used to just do whatever, thinking I was like being the best wife I could be, because I wasn't thinking about what my needs were, which we're going to get into later. But people pleasing, that is synonymous with the whole moving toward shame shield that Dr. Brene Brown is talking about when we're talking about shame. What are you leaning towards? Think about it as we keep going. So far, we have moving away. When I'm triggered for my shameful feelings, I am putting up the walls, or I'm moving toward. I am people pleasing, right? The third and final shame shield is moving against. That is the fight. We talked about the fight or flight response when we are triggered for our traumatic incidents and our shame kind of kicks up. Moving against, coming out swinging, as she says, it's fighting. So do you fight with your words? Are you aggressive in your tone? Is your communication a little skewed because you know that if you were nice to people, they wouldn't take you seriously, right? So what does that look like for you when you're moving against something and you're pushing and pushing and you're just kind of kicking up the conflict? We know, and at least I know as a professional, that is a way for you to protect yourself. But where has that gotten you? How has that helped you? What is the end game? What's the goal for you to start the fight? Now, some people, I don't believe anybody fights for no reason. I really don't. It's coming from a place of pain, hence the shame. Make that connection. People who are ashamed, isolating themselves, literally believing they're bad, they may act out. It's not a pretty thing, right? And so again, that's going to call up those three shame shields, whether you're moving away, you're isolating yourself, you don't even want nobody to see you, right? When I'm using Harry Potter in therapy, because I love Harry Potter, those who know me know what it is. Are you putting your invisibility cloak on because you don't even want anybody to see how you've been acting out, instead of actually asserting yourself, sitting with those things and figuring out your needs? Are you moving toward? Because you're people pleasing. You're on the other end of the spectrum. You're sacrificing your needs because you decided that that's the best way to be seen, right? That's the best way to get the attention, because if you're thinking about daddy issues, maybe daddy didn't give you that. Or are you moving against? Are you fighting? Now, you know me, in my books, right? I told you before, I give you speed bumps. That's what I call them in my books, right? So I give you a chance to kind of digest the information. So you read the book. In between each chapter, there are self-reflection questions as well as practical tools. And I mentioned that because y'all know Wellness Wednesdays ain't gonna be no different. Okay, I'm gonna give you something to walk away with so that you can know what it is I need to do. I've identified this thing. How do I practically address the shame shields? Okay, and that's what I want to get with you guys tonight. So how do we address shame shields? Step number one, find the pattern of thought that supports the shame spiral. I've talked before in different Wellness Wednesdays about the ABC model, which is the activating event, the trigger, the belief system that is called up when I'm triggered by this thing, and then the consequence. How am I feeling, or how am I behaving, or both, right? So we have to know what it is that that pattern is. What is it that I am telling myself? Self-talk is so important, y'all. We have to be engaged in what we are saying to ourselves in the mirror. We're really mean to ourselves. And that's something that is going to garner even more shame, right? So then, in order to address the shame shields, whatever you may be leaning towards, all three of them, one of them, they may overlap for you, which I'll get to later. Find that pattern, because once you become curious and you're vulnerable with yourself, you're leading with your whole heart, as Dr. Brene Brown would say, then you sit with it and you identify and become curious about what that pattern is so that you can knock a hole in it, disprove it. And there are activities that I do with clients in individual therapy to help people be able to identify that. So the shame spiral is what Dr. Brene Brown calls it. That is where we kind of are in our heads. Have you guys ever been in your heads about something and you're ruminating and it seems like there's 1 or 5 thoughts or 5 billion thoughts? It seems like they're just rolling around your head and you can't make sense of it. You got to find a way to slow down. Mindfulness and grounding are a great way to do that. Journaling it all out is another way to do that, so that you can really see on paper what you're saying to yourself. Seeing it is a lot different. So then you can kind of figure out, where am I saying these things? Who am I with when these thoughts come up? What's happening? So then you find the pattern of when you use the shield. That's another point that Brene Brown brings up when she's talking about addressing shame shields. What is it that you notice when you are putting up the shield of moving away? When you're isolating yourself, you don't want anyone to see you. When is it that you have that tendency to move toward or move against? When are you fighting? Who are you around? What's the setting? What mood are you in? What's the emotion that's coming up? And the emotions are the things that trip us up, because they change from one minute to the next. I could be happy one moment and pissed off the next because something went down. The mood is really the duration we actually stay in that emotion. So like, take note of your mood. How are you really feeling? And pay attention to when those shields come up. We don't know what to do next unless you actually make that note and really pay attention to yourself. The second thing, as far as how to address shame shields, is to identify the need for using the shame shield. So are you putting up the shield of moving away and isolating yourself because you are really like, I don't want anyone to see me, I'm super embarrassed? Are you moving against, fighting because you have something to say and nobody's listening to you? How can you find a better way to communicate your needs to other people so that they hear you? How do you assert yourself? There's lots of materials out there that will help you figure out what your communication styles are. If it's more aggressive, it might be something that you watched. How did your parents communicate? What did your village do when there was conflict, when you were coming up? Who took care of you, and how did they actually address their needs? Did you even talk about it? And I have clients right now that I've seen, and or people that I've seen in the past, and they don't have that type of training. I didn't either. Nobody taught me how to identify and figure out what my feelings were and then communicate them. It's something that I'm helping my kids do, right? And so identify that need. What is it that what your body needs? What do you want? What's the end game? Why are you using this particular shield? And then figuring out what that need means. Okay, if nobody else is going to meet this need, then how can you meet that need for yourself? It's something that I write about in my books. Not necessarily like honing in on the shame shield piece, but a quick spoiler about the book is that my dad and I right now, as of September 2021, we're not speaking. It's been like 4 years. And so there's a boundary that clearly both of us have set up to protect ourselves, and maybe we'll resolve that. But the book doesn't end with us getting along, because that's not where we are right now. And so I had to make sure that in my journey with to transcend daddy issues, that I was not in a place where I depended on him to meet my need. I don't depend on my husband to meet a need. If I can't give it to myself, then it's probably something that I really don't need. And so the book is all about, and kind of like, it's about the daddy issues journey, how I've transcended it, how other women have looked. Can you see yourself in the book? In between each chapter, the whole point is self-care. That's what this point is about, addressing the shame shield piece. This second tip is about you identifying the need. Based on what I say in my books, you take care of yourself first so that you can have the capacity to give to other people should you choose. And I would venture to say that if you're one that wants to take care of yourself and you're in that space, then you are going to want to get that. That's just my guess. And it's something I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen it. Now, the final tip I want to give you all for how to address your shame shields, which again are trauma responses. This is just your way of protecting yourself, but there's a better way to do it. There's a healthier way for you to address the feeling of shame. You sit with it and figure out what that need is. You lean into that ugly. And I want to say that those 3 shame shields that I've been talking about so far tonight they may overlap. So you may do more than one at a time. It's not linear. Again, maybe a different setting brings up one over the other. A different person brings up the move away. Someone that you might know at work brings up the moving towards. Like, you just don't know. But you have to get to know your trauma response yourself in order to do that. So the last tip that I'll give you tonight for addressing shame shields is identifying affirmations. I told you on the first tip to figure out what it is that your pattern of thoughts are that are contributing to the shame shields. And this is how you poke holes. This is how you say, I need to negate the negative thoughts and move towards addressing your needs. And so what is it that you know you need to hear? What are those affirmations? On my Instagram story today, I actually shared something that I listened to. Londrell, I think is how he pronounces his name, but he has like this whole like cool vibe of like it's like spoken word kind of affirmations over like just cool, calm beats. It's very grounding. It's a great mindfulness tool. If you don't have affirmations that you identify with, do something new. There's also the meditation mixtape by Sheila Marie. One of my clients put me on, and I listen to it and I share with other people as well. Maybe you need to shake up your affirmations. Maybe it's the Bible, and you need to look at it in a different way. The descriptions in a different way. What is that for you? And so I just wanted to leave you with those 3 tips because it is really important for you to know yourself. We're raised by other people who are also trying to figure it out, likely coming from a different trauma response. And this is our chance in whatever stage of life that you're watching this to take control and adjust what you have learned. Right? There is such thing as us unlearning the things that were unhealthy for us and still affect us to this day. Yes, it dates back to childhood. There are lots of things I'm teaching my kids now. They are 10 and 4, and I'm sure they're going to hang on to that for life. Hopefully the good things, because that's how powerful memories are. That's how powerful trauma can be if you let it. And so you're not going to do that if you ignore stuff. Do you have daddy issues? Do you feel rejection? Sensitive to abandonment? Having issues in your relationships? Call it what it is, sis. And this group that I have, the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, is for women. It is starting in a couple weeks, September 13th. You can click the link in my bio, go straight to my website at couchwithchristian.com and really get into the homepage. I'll email you back with the consultation link. We'll meet face to face just like this, and I'll talk to you about the group in detail, tell you how to join. You can ask me questions. I'll sit there and spend that time with you so you know that it's something that's a good fit for you. And really, to probably for the first time, a lot of the consultations I've had have been the very first time that these women have ever even said these words out loud. But we're going to be women who are holding ourselves accountable. Women with daddy issues are women dealing with emotional trauma. The Daddy Issues Healing Circle is a perfect place to start if you know that you need support. Shame cannot live in community. That's another thing that Brene Brown says. It's something that I wrote in my books. Isolation is where shame grows. If you join a group like the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, and you can ask me how, then that is where the work begins. If you need to have more information about the shame shields, I have incorporated that to the group. It's 8 weeks long. I give you information about how to join if you want to do a consultation. I've done plenty of talks about it. Last Wednesday, I had 2 more members from the first round come on here and give you their perspectives about their experience in the Daddy Issues Healing Circle. And so feel free to check that out. I also I made an announcement earlier this week. If you saw my live on Instagram, and I was actually in my Overcoming Daddy Issues group live. I don't really go in there. Hey, y'all. But I wanted to go live randomly in that Facebook group, and you can join. It's for women. I'm writing another book, y'all, and I'm expanding upon my Heavenly Father versus Earthly Father chapter in my book, where I talk about how daddy issues have impacted me spiritually, and how to reconnect. Because for me, I identify as a Christian woman. That's how I was raised. I went away because I was mad at God, came back. I'm writing about that. But it's really going to be a chance for you to have like space to write out and journal what that experience is like for you, should you decide you want to reconnect with God. And so I'm excited about that project. So I'm asking people to kind of give me feedback about what they want to hear or see in a book like that. So I am pumped about that project. I feel like it's really going to be something that is going to be even more helpful than the first project has been. It's been a year, over a year now, that my books have been published. I'm super excited. So you guys can find it on the website. I actually have some inventory, y'all. I never have inventory. I had a book signing where I sold most of the inventory, but I have like, what is this, 6 books left and 4 workbooks. And I'll make another post about this, about the inventory I have. I like to try to keep a tidy office, and so I'm ready to get rid of this stuff. So if you guys want a book, I will shoot you an invoice. If you send me a DM, let me know. I'll sign it for you. Tell me where to send it. And so I just wanted to make sure I said that before I left. Thank you guys. 30 minutes on the nose. It's time for me to go pray with my babies, put them to bed, brush some teeth, help my little 4-year-old is getting better at doing it on his own. Thank you guys for your time. I hope to catch you guys next Wednesday. Share with a friend. Share the love, you guys, and drop comments below. DM me. Let me know what you thought. Good night.